The power of the trumps, a subtle burst. What is about to unfold is a series of recorded lectures on the power of the trumps. Over 8 short lectures, this is the first, I will read sequences of 3 cards, just the trumps of the Marseille Tarot. I have a specific aim in mind, to teach something about the power of the tarot trumps, both at the individual and collective level. That is to say, I want to look at the cards as they appear next to one another, but at the same time, I also want to describe their force individually. Now, what interests me is power that's not so in your face, and therefore often stronger. This won't come as a surprise to occultists and animists, spiritual workers, and other good folk who help people with their internal mess. For this group, power that manifests subtly is power that's interesting, power that's raw, dangerous, and not so safe. You can learn what to do with the tarot trumps in terms of thinking of them as representations of embodiment, function, and voice. But you can also learn to gain insight that runs at the subtler level, where what I explore is precisely this: a burst of power that's unmediated by culture. This is a tall order, as it's impossible to escape the symbolic mindset we all grow up with. And by symbolic mindset, I don't mean to suggest things like equating cups with love, but rather the mindset that tells you you are a success if you earn a lot of money, have a good education, an honest wife, and obedient children. Now, doesn't all that make you soft in your knees? Of course it does, especially if you happen to be in the middle of the altar saying, yes, I do, and buying the promise of everlasting happiness. Such is the work of belief. It's all symbolic, and we know it. It's all delusion, and we like it. But here is what I do in this series of 8 lectures, other than laugh at our beliefs. I employ a simple method. I say something obvious, then I ask you to think about it in different ways. And then I encourage you to stop thinking according to received perceptions. Many talk about how the tarot speaks to them. Indeed, there is such a thing. Voice is the most magical tool we have, and it looks like inanimate objects also have it. But how concrete is what we hear? Putting what we hear into words so that our understanding is going somewhere is very much also an act of magic. Now, what I do here that I haven't done in my divination books or my other numerous writings in the social media is stress the bursting quality of the trumps when it's experienced at the subtle level. And by subtle, I mean the level that's in between worlds, on the horizon line, where the seen and the unseen mingle in an oracular way, which is to say, the poetic way, the way that bursts open our perceptions. This is less mysterious than it sounds. Just ask yourself, how many times have you sat with your images of the tarot and had this feeling that although you see what you see, you also see more? I bet your answer to this is many. Why do you think that is? Because subtlety has a voice, and this voice is more articulate than you think. It has a wider range than your whisper. Here be dragons. I'm reading the tarot and it feels like riding the hedge. So you start noticing the unseen that stares you in the face. The obvious is mysterious. It's mysterious because it's sharp and has the face of the two worlds shape-shifting. Say you get a question about relationships and off you go with reading embodiment, color, form, function, or fancy. How weird is that? Well, it's weird because you take this job seriously, because you trust your feet firmly planted in two worlds. You are not riding this hedge because you want to act on dictations, cultural images, and what's appropriate in their constructions. You are into other creations. But what do you see? What can you see? Are you reading the tarot with your full body? Or are you transmitting consecrated thoughts, good ones at that, but sometimes uninspired simply because they're not yours? Where do you go when you want to see what's what for yourself? Let's look at 3 cards. The Fool first, the Charioteer, and the Tower. Imagine a dialogue or a monologue in this case here. I need to get there fast, the Fool says. No time for walks here. I'll get in my car and teleport myself. Oops. It looks like I bumped into something. What was that? Getting there fast, wherever it is that you need to go, is a great intention. But what if you forget something essential? Namely, that all tarot readings are subject to conditions that change. What you point to right now when you look at a simple 3-card draw can be contradicted by a 4th card. Imagine something coming up here. Well, you might start thinking, I was too eager. I brought this accident on myself. But wait, stop and look. What else is the Fool saying? He may be saying, who's that other person falling out of the tower? All of a sudden, there are 2 of us here. And what if it wasn't my fault? So say you'd like to know who this other person is, and then you pull another card. Suppose that's the Magician. This is what happens when someone tricks you into taking the car when you'd be better off walking, and to take him along as a clandestine passenger. Boom! The car hits a rock, or many rocks. The ones that the Magician throws into the air that he pretends are his magic tools on his table. And before you know it, you're in for a ride, all right, but one that renders you in the ditch. So all is well until it's not anymore. You sigh. At least you can blame this one on someone else. You can blame it on the 4th card, the con man. Now, if you ever get such card combinations that go from featuring single people on them to ones that feature several people on them, do you ever ask, who are these others? Do I know them? How do they impact on me? By way of force or inspiration? See, one of the guiding questions in all of my readings is in fact this very question. Who is doing what to whom? In my examples here, I offer a concrete meditation on the problem of agency and more. I ask you to think about the power to act and who holds it. Is this power even in the picture at all? The tarot trumps are very clever at prompting us with this observation, and we go from noticing who and what we are dealing with to the more refined, yes, but how does this impact on me or the situation I'm in? We have people cards, we have nature cards, and we have cards that tell us you are also going to die. Let's give an example. There is a person card, there is a nature card, and there is the one we all know, though as yet we haven't experienced. So we can just go, well, thank you cards, thank you for the memento mori. It's good to know when a storm is coming, so I can call that a natural catastrophe if I see Judgment and the Tower together. One big cloud, and before you know it, everyone is directly affected. I don't even need to speculate. Who did this to me? Who are these others? The other question that interests me in the series of looking at the subtle and bursting power of the trumps is the question of timing. Not so much timing in the sense of observing the dynamics between fast cards and slow cards. We've just had an example of that here. The Fool is slow, the Charioteer is fast, but more in the sense of when the time is right for something. When you come to the cards with your question, you do so because the time is right for you to get answers that are more aligned with what your reality is and how it confronts you head on. After all, the only reason why you read cards is because you want to get away from culture and its discontents. You may know, culturally speaking, that it's a good idea to finish that education, stop bumming around, and get in the fast lane. But what if the time is right for something else? What if you're done with working for an institution and the time is right to walk away and do something else? You may not quite know what that is because you're not trained to think outside of what culture dictates. But you know what you don't know that you do know. We call this logical intuition. So how do you see it in the cards when the time is right for something? This question is what I like to think of as the subtle burst in our readings, as it makes us go beyond symbolic power, beyond familiar patterns of thinking. When the tarot speaks to you, it doesn't speak in a language that's borrowed. It speaks in a language that you understand as you cross the line of what's appropriate. So come right on this hedge and learn to think what not to think. Learn to read like the devil and get that penetrating vision by reading the damn cards.